Hello and welcome back to Steam It with Steve. Today we're going to keep going with graphical user interfaces and we're going to learn how to build our own Python application. So let's jump on in. So there's a couple of different little activities we're going to try and build. We're going to learn how to build a simple random number generator, which is going to have a button that you click and it will spit out a number from 1 to 100 up the top. You're then going to create a times table generator where you type in a number. So you might type in 6 and then press the generate button, and then it will give you all the times tables up to from 0 all the way through to 12. Lastly, we'll then build a simple scoring system with player 1 and player 2. And every time you click the button, it will increase the score by 1. Cool, so the first one, let's jump on in. We're going to build a random number generator. And like I said, it will have a button down here. And then you click on that button and it will generate a number from 1 to 100. You'll make the program generate a random integer. And we'll use this button. So we're going to call this button random button with camel case. And then this label, we're going to call label. So let's jump straight into PyCharm. So to get PyCharm open, and then we'll go a new project. Call this one random number generator. Now it's really important. I messed this up in the previous video I was trying to film for this. Make sure you click on inherit global site packages. Otherwise you won't have access to PyQt. So we're going to open that up, generate some code for us, and we're good to go. So we're going to delete that. And then we're going to build in Qt Designer. So we're going to open up Qt Designer, go create. And what we're going to do is build a push button. First, we'll call that a random button. And then property inspector over here. And then we'll say push to generate a random number. Now that's a lot of text. What we can do is actually increase the size of that button and make it ridiculously big. And then we can also change the font. So if we go back up here under the widget, you'll see the font option. We choose the font size. Let's make that go up to 14. We can then make that also go bold. Yeah, button all sorted. So now, a little. Now we need to create a label. So if we come down here on the display widgets, it's right there. So instead of an input widget where you can type into it, a label's a little bit different in the sense that you can only put an output to it. So the person can't type things into a label. That's basically why it's been built. We're then also going to change that. So we're going to make that 16 as well. And let's center this. So instead of to the left, let's make that align to the center. And then the text inside of it doesn't need anything in it. So we can just get rid of it like so. Awesome. Actually, let's put just for the fun. So that's sort of the starting default text that it will begin with. We're now going to save that. So if we go save, we need to go into our Python file. So we're going to this PC, C drive, users, Hendo, PyCharm projects, random number generator, and then we'll go number.ui. Now if we go back to our PyCharm, that's why we build the PyCharm first. So we've got the folder, and then the random number UI has been built into that. So all that XML code has been built, which is really, really cool. You can manipulate it here if you want, but my recommendation is just to do in Qt Designer. Cool. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. So we've done that. We've built the interface. We've made sure we've used the right objects and we've called them the right names. So now we need to build this bit of code. So this is a little bit trickier, but if you follow it step by step, it's pretty straightforward. My advice is to build this as a template, and then pretty much wherever you see a comment, just delete all those things and then just upload into those parts what you need. So you can pause the video there, and then I will type this up as well. There's a small error here as well. You don't need the window.show down here as well. So that's been handled up here now. It's a little bit of a change that I've done. So from PyQt6, we want to import. Hang on, is that big enough? Let's go one size. So that way you can see it. So from PyQt6, we want Qt widgets, and we want to import the Q main window, the Q application, the Q push button, and then the Q label. Now, the reason why we don't import the whole library is it actually saves some space, and we also want to be mindful that we only import what we need. So PyQt6, we want to then import the UIC up. That, so that's all in line. We then want to import the system so we can load things into it, and then we want to import the random library. Now, this is why I love PyCharm. All these things haven't been used yet. That's why they're all grayed out. And then if you look here, there is actually a little bit of a warning. So it's saying unused imports, which is pretty cool that it gives you that feedback straight away. So then you can sort of work out what if something's irrelevant or if it's not. So pretty much we now do those 3 lines of code that we always need to do. So we're going to make a class called UI. We're going to call it the main window. We're going to inject the main window into it. Basically what that does, Q main window. So that uploads the PyQt main window function that's already been built. And then now you should see that we've now imported that library. So that library now has access to everything we're about to type, which is really, really cool. So instead of typing out thousands of lines of code, which is what this handles, we just had to write that. And now we have access to all of them. With any class, we need to have an init function, which basically initializes it. So when you call it, it has something to refer to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cheat and use the Q window function. So that's what super does. So super, and we're going to pass into the UI and itself, and we're going to call its init function to start. So that will then build everything. You don't need to know exactly how all that works. Pretty much that if you build that every single time though at the start, like we said, we don't need expecting you to be a mechanic. We're expecting you to be an F1 driver. So you just copy and paste that, and you're good to go. UIC, now we're going to load it. So we'll load the UI that we just built. And we've got a random number.ui. And then hash find the widgets XML file. So now we're going to go self.label. So that's going to build a new label is equal to self.find child. And that's a Q label. That's a label like that. Then we're going to make a random button method, which is equal to self.find child. Q push button and a random button. Then self.random. So those are the 2 objects now have been linked. So in Qt Designer, there's the label and then the random button, which is that and that. So we've built the link. Now we need to build the signal. So make the signal connection to the button. Pretty easy. We go self. So from itself, it wants to then go to the random button that we've just created. Dot clicked. Dot connect. And then self. Dot random. Cool. And then now we also want to show it. So instead of writing the show function outside, inside the initialization function, we're now going to show it. So what happens is that allows it to be displayed. Cool. Oops, I forgot to put that in quotation marks. Cool. And make sure it's compatible. We'll reformat it. Awesome. So what you should see here now, the only thing that's missing is the random clicked, the click random. which is the function that's going to be connected to the button, which we need to now define inside the class. So to do that, we press enter and go down one, and then we go def, picked random with self, and then now we make a random number. So x is equal to random.randInt. We want to go from 1 to 100. And PyCharm's smart enough to actually put little variable names in there, which is kind of cool. So it says A and B. Then we go self.label.setText. Then str version of the random number we just generated. Cool. So now that outside that, we actually want to build all the applications. So we're going to go Q application. And then we want to go sys.argv. Then we want to build a new window, the UI to exist in, which is what that does. So this one line code here basically calls all of this. So this is kind of like what we did with Turtle way back, where we went turtle.turtle. We've now built a window that is a UI and has everything that we just talked about. We then want the app to execute. So it will go through and try and find all the pieces of the puzzle and get that together. Cool. So now, hopefully, we have some code good to go. Let's press play. Self.clicked random is not connected. There's no such thing as complete. So UIC.load UI needs to also have self next to it. Otherwise it won't reference it. Oh, there we go. And then if I click on that button, there's a whole heap of random numbers that's been generated. Cool that. So yeah, small error there. Sorry, that's my bad. With UIC.load UI, you load the UI, but then also you need to reference the self so it's able to pair them together. So it's like connecting a chord together. So if you click on that, there's your random number generator. Pretty cool. Awesome. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is the times table generator. So what's going to happen here is you're going to type in a number. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as the whole number, and then you go generate tables, and then output here will be all the times tables from 0 up to 12. So this is going to make the program output all the times tables from that inputted value. We're going to create this UI with a tables button, which is a button, a label, which is going to be this output, and then the input field, which is going to be a line edit. The other thing, because we're going to be doing a whole heap of new lines here, we can use the escape key for a new line, which is /n. Sorry, /n. That's /. So let's build our little design first. So what we need to do is go to Qt Designer. Sorry, PyCharm first. So we're going to make a new project. I'm going to call this one, let's call it times tables. And we're going to inherit the global packages that we've created. Great. And we're going to delete all of that. And we need to now go to Qt Designer to build the interface. So we're going to go to File, New, Main Window, click Create, get rid of this guy, and off we go. So to do this, first step is we need to file line edit, which is this guy. That allows you to type something into it. We call this one, I think it was input field. That should be pretty cookie cutter. We then want to put a button in. So we're going to go push button. There's that guy. And for that, call that one times button. push to generate. And let's increase that size. Let's change that to 12 as well, so it's a bit easier for you guys to see at home. And then we want to go label. This one's going to be pretty big. Pull that down a little bit more. And then we want that to be aligned at the top. So vertical alignment, we want to align from the top. And basically we'll type the number in there, click generate, and off it goes. So I'm actually going to call this one instead of label. Let's call this output. That makes more sense. So it's output, we've got times button, and we've got input field. Cool. So now we'll save that. So let's go save, PyCharm, times table, and let's call this times tables .ui. So now if we go back into PyCharm, we should see the times table.ui has been built. And then again, just so you've seen it, all the code's been generated, which is really, really, really cool. Awesome. So now let's go into main and let's build the code. So pretty much the same cookie cutter code that we've done before. A little bit different with the function though at the end. So we're going to link it to the button, and then that is the function that's going to be attached to that. So let's jump on in. So to start, same thing as before, we're going to import pyqt6.qt-widgets. Sorry. From pyqt6.qt widgets. We want to import the Q main window, the Q application, the Q label, the Q push button, and the Q line edit. Whoop, I didn't finish. Q line edit. Cool. Cross. Then we want to import the UIC. So from pyqt6, we want to import the UIC, import the system file. Now we don't actually need to import random because we won't be doing anything random. Now we do the 3 lines of code that we've done before. So we're going to go class UI Q main window. So then that does all the coding that makes a window in one line, which is really, really cool. And then we want to initialize the function. So this is what we call a constructor. So we're going to init the self. And then to do that, we're going to use the super function of UI and self. And then we're going to just call init. Done. So now the first step is we need to load the UI, and we're going to load, what do we call it? Times tables.ui. And this is what we didn't do right before. We went self. So then that now connects the UI together with this object that we're building. So that user interface should be all good to go. Now is the easy part, pretty much the cookie cutter part. So I'm going to find the widgets that we've built in the XML file. So to do that, we're going to go self.output is equal to self.findTheChild, and that was a Q label, and we called that, I'm pretty sure, output. Let's go to the Qt Designer, and yep, we called that output. Then we're going to do self.multiply button. I think I called it times button, sorry, let's do that. The times button, and we're going to go self.findTheChild, Q push button, times button. And that, yep, times button has been found. And now that's been linked into the Python code. Then we're going to go self input field equals self dot find child, and this time it's a Q line edit. We called that one input field, which was this one. Cool. So that's all the widgets now found and connected. So now we want to make a signal connection to the button. So we're going to go self dot times button. I think I called it multiply in the PowerPoint, but work out what it means. I'm going to go find child. I'm going to connect it. So we're going to go self dot clicked dot connect, and we're going to connect self dot clicked multiply. Sorry. It's not equals. You're accessing a function inside of it. Cool. And then we want to show it after it's done all that. Great. So now we want to do the method called clicks multiply and work out exactly what has to happen in that space. So we're going to go def clicks multiply, open brackets, self. And now we need to build the actual function. So we're going to go self.label, output, let's do that. Set text and set it to empty. So that's going to clear out whatever's in there currently. We're then going to go value that we're going to be interested in is equal to self. Let's change that to an integer to start. Oh no, let's keep it as a value. We'll go self dot input field dot text. So that's going to draw outside that input field the text that is inside of it. And then we're going to set output is equal to blank, because we're going to set all that up. Now this is why I love PyCharm. See how it's got all grayed out for these variables, because we haven't used them yet, which is going to happen eventually. So now we need to do a for loop. So we're going to print out each of those times tables and then store it into the output. So for I in range, I'm going to do 13. So it's going to do it 13 times. We're going to go output is now equal to output plus the value. So whatever is currently stored in the output, you're going to add the value onto it at the front. Then you're going to put in a string that says times. Then we want to put in the string version of what I is, because that's going to be the times table. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12. Then we want to add on equals. Then we want to actually do the math. So we're going to change the string version of the int version of the value times I. So what happens here is this thing here is going to take 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times whatever the integer value of whatever you've typed in, and hopefully it's a whole integer number, and then changes it into a string to add it onto the string concatenation. We're then going to add in a new line, and that's it. After that's run 12 times. You now, it is 13 because it starts at 0. You then want to add in the label, set the text, and we're going to set it to output. Sorry. That might mess it. Let's call this string output. String output. Sorry, because we've got a bit of confusion here. So output was the name that we gave to the label. So just to make sure it's very clear that this is the string output that needs to be attached to it. Yeah, so now that should run for that bit, and then we just need to build the actual application. So application equals Q application bracket sys.argv, close the bracket, window equals UI, and then app.execute. Spell that wrong. Let's try it again. Q. Okay. That's why I love autocorrect, because it fills in the gaps. Cool. So no errors. All good. Let's run it and see how we go. Like that. So times button.clicked. Child times button, but it hasn't found times button. Let's have a look. That's why. Call it a time button. So it's as simple as that. Saved it. So go file, save it, and because this is all linked in Qt Designer, it now runs. I'm going to put our one times table in. Generate. There we go. 444, 444, and it gives you automatic output for that, which is pretty cool for a little simple app. Now, if you did 2.1, it closes it because it's not able to handle that because it's not an integer, which is something that we'll handle later when we do error checking, which is what this does. So I want to introduce a new concept called try and accept. Basically, the way this works, it's sort of like an if statement, but basically it means try and doing this bit of code. If it works, all good, carry on. If anything goes wrong at all, what happens then is you have this accept clause. So if anything goes wrong, like what we just saw, it gets executed, and then this accept thing happens saying this is not a valid number. So let's jump it back into Qt Designer, PyCharm. I'm going to modify this code a little. So instead of here, what we're going to do is I'm going to put a try block. So we're going to try to do this. And if it's all good, it's all good. You won't even notice it. Then, if there's an exception, we're going to go self output.set text. Say this is not a valid number. Exclamation. Show the context, reformat it. Should change it. Too broad, but that's okay. We'll deal with that later. Right, here we go. So we run it. It's 2, that still works. I go 233, it works. I go 2.13. Says not a valid number. I then go to 434. It then doesn't crash the program. Now if I try, I don't know, unicorn. Not a valid number. So now I've built a way that this program can't crash, and then it still works, which is pretty cool. Awesome. So that's that one done. Right, the last one we're going to try and build is a simple game scoring. So basically this program is going to keep score. When red is clicked, it gets 1 point. When blue is clicked, it gets 1 point. Gives a reset button. So you're going to have red clicking on that, and then blue clicking on that, and then the score will change up the top. And then underneath here, you have a reset. So there's 2 labels, red label and blue label, and then a red button, a blue button, and then a reset button underneath. So same process again, we go new project, and then this time we're going to call this one score game. We're going to inherit the global site packages, otherwise the PyQt6 doesn't exist. And here we go. So now that's built, delete all this code. And then we go back into Qt Designer. So we close this one down, go create. This time we want to have a score. So we're going to create 2 push buttons, sorry 3. So we're going to have a push button here, push button here. Actually, let's see if this works. We'll go Command C, Command V. There we go. So they're exactly the same size. And then I'll go Command V again. Cross. So this one is the red button. Change the text to say red scored. And then let's play around with this a little. So let's make one go up to 12. So what we're going to do is going to put the label in for the score. And same as before. Let's go through. And we're going to line that in the center. And then let's change the size of that. Again, font. We'll change that to 12. Cool. So now we've built our little game. So now we're going to save that. This time instead of PyCharm, we're going to store that into the score game. I'm going to go score game UI. That should have built the UI for us. This and see all the different code in there. Didn't change it. Anyway, that's right. So let's go main, and we will now build the code to link to it. So we've aligned the center. This one's a little bit more complicated. So because we've got multiple buttons, we then need to have different things for what happens for all the signals for each of the buttons. So just pause the video there, have a go at typing that up, and then I'll show you how I did it. All right, here we go. So we're going to go from PyQt6.qt widgets. I'm going to import in Q main window, then the Q application, then the Q push button, then the Q label. Q push button, and then Q label. Then from PyQt6, we're going to import the UIC, and then we're going to import in system. We're then going to go class UI, open bracket, Q main window, and now we're going to go def, init, bracket self, and then we're going to go super UI self dot underscore underscore init. We'll then initialize using the self. For some reason, it's not autocorrect. So we go self. And those are the 3 most important lines of code. So that does all the code from the Q main window. Now I'm going to go UIC load UI, open brackets, and we called this one the score game.ui. And then we're going to load that in with the self. And now we need to find all the widgets, all the components that we have in the XML file. So then we're going to go self.red label. So we're going to link the red label that we're going to build in Python is equal to self.find the child. And we're going to call it a Q label. And it's called the red label. Then I'm going to go self.blue label equals self.find child Q label. And this one's the blue label. Then I need to do all the buttons. So self.red button equals self.findChild. And then Q push button, red button. Then I'm going to go self.blue button equals, sorry, that should be equals as well. Self.findChild. This is a Q push button as well. This one's called blue button. Then we're going to go self.reset button equals self.findChild, Q push button, and then reset button. And now we're going to make signal connections to the button. I'm going to go self.red button dot clicked, and we want to connect it, and then we're going to make our own function called clicked red, which we'll do down below. Then we're going to do the same as the blue button when it's clicked. So self.blue button, and for people that have done good dot, this should be a bit more simple and straightforward with what we're doing when we're doing signal connections. Self.clicked blue. Then we're going to do self.reset button .clicked .connect self.clicked reset. Awesome. And then also we need to show that after it's done. So self.show, and then that shows the application. Cool. So now we need to actually get the functions working. So we need to do clicked red, clicked blue, and then clicked reset. So I'm going to go def clicked red self, and then you're going to go the red value is equal to an int of what's currently in the red label dot text, and then you're just going to +1 to it. So then self.red label dot set the text, and then we want to do a string value of the red value. Oh, and then again it's done the selfie self. One self. Awesome. So now let's do the same again. So def clicked blue self, and then we're going to go blue value is equal to the integer value of self.blue label dot text +1, and self.blue label dot set text string value of blue value. And then the last one, we then want to def clicked reset of self, and we want to self.red label dot set the text to 0. Self blue label dot set text 0. Then we're going to go app equals q application sys.rv, and that loads the application into the system. Window equal to UI, and then app.execute. Now I just had a thought for the application itself. We need 2 Q labels here, don't we? So we need one for this one, for red score, blue score. I just did a copy and paste job there. So instead of this, we're going to call this, we call it red label. And then we need to set the value when it starts actually to 0. So then it has a number to start. Same with this one. We're going to call this blue label. We'll set the text to 0. Sorry, I was a bit puzzled before. And then because we've changed it, we just save that. Now, hopefully when we run this, it's all going to work. There we go. Simple little scoring game, which is kind of cool. You can reset it. Fantastic. So hopefully that's helped get your head in the game of how that sort of looks. So some conclusion questions. How can these GUI skills be applied in the real world? What are some key factors in designing effective GUIs? And then reflect on the challenges that faced during this lesson. I know I faced one trying to work out the color. I'm going to add a video after I work out how to do that. Probably went off on a little tangent there, but you know, these things happen. And then yeah, so there's a little Kahoot there to have a play with. It's covered some of the concepts that we've covered today. And then for homework, what I would do is try and build your own favorite scoring game. So if you like basketball, you might be able to have some sort of system that scores 1, 2, 3 points. You might also put in a shot clock. There's a whole heap of stuff that you could sort of do, even the timeouts or penalties or the periods. There's heaps of stuff that you could sort of play around. So that's it for me. Hopefully you've picked up how to do these different activities, which is a bit of fun. This is a lot more advanced, but if you've done all the work up to now, it should be making a lot of sense. So that's it for me. If you did enjoy the video, please give us a like and subscribe down below, as it does help with my YouTube algorithm. And yeah, thank you very much. See you next time on Steam It with Steve. Adios.